Good morning, everybody. This is Paul Romero with the Sell a House Wholesale Real Estate Training number 68. And
So you got Scott.
this is Friday. Gosh, I don't even know what it is. Friday, January 9th, the end of the official first week of 2015. And here we are, not even 10 days into the year, and our number one noodler, Mark, has already landed a deal. And that is awesome because what we're going to talk about today is the next step after you have gone out and you've landed your deal and you've got a contract. Well, what do? You got to make some money, right? A contract ain't no good unless you attach a buyer to it and you actually get a check in escrow for you to make some money. So the next step is selling your deal. So today, well, actually, before you can sell it, you're going to have to market it because you can't sell it if people don't know where it is. So we're going to talk a little bit today about marketing your deals, marketing your contracts. This is sort of um, the after noodling piece to the puzzle. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And John, what do you got to say this morning to the crew?
Good morning, Paul. Good morning, crew. Good morning, Mark. If you're on, congratulations. It's awesome. He landed his first deal. He's only been with the Noodler program for just a couple weeks, and he's already got his first deal. And this happened right after the hangout on Wednesday, and he got it under contract. And as Paul said, and I was going to recommend to everybody to pull out their pen and their paper today and take some notes because we're going to really dig into some very helpful, useful content for kind of the next step of noodling, which of course is to market your property now that once you have one under contract. Okay, great. You've got a property under contract. What do? Well, for guys like Paul and I who've been in the business for several years, with this particular property, we know that we can get it sold. Probably as simple as 1 to 3 phone calls from buyers we already have on our buyers list. Great, easy. We can leave it at that and end this hangout now and go no further with any explanation, but that doesn't help anybody. What we like to do, though, is on this particular contract, we have 30 days before closing. To be on the safe side, I like to get a buyer in closing 7 days before the closing date. So we have about 21 days from today, or Wednesday was when we had about 20 or 19 more days to go ahead and put a buyer on this. And rather than just pick up the phone and make a few simple phone calls, what we like to do is market the properties a little bit because that will also help us to build our buyers list and also to maximize the amount we can sell the property for. With that being said, we're going to get into a couple details here on how to go about marketing these properties. And Paul, I'm going to toss it back to you because I really have to go to the bathroom here. And
Okay.
I'm going to let you get us started, and I'll be right back in to throw in my 2 cents.
No problem. I'm going to say the first thing you want to make sure that you write down here today in your notes is right here where it says, a little too close with the pen there, right here where it says propertynoodlers@gmail.com. Write that down because you're going to want to send us an email. You're going to want to get involved with the property noodlers, the guys who are doing it, the guys who are finding the real deals that make the real money, not the guys that are, scraping scraps off the MLS and trying to mark up garbage that makes no sense. And I don't know what those guys are doing, but don't worry about it. If you want to get involved and turn your wholesaling game around, propertynoodlers@gmail.com. Very first note you're going to want to take this morning and use it. Send us an email. So, selling your property. What are we going to do here? Well, one of the first things that we do is we'll go to a site called Postlets, and on Postlets you can make a flyer, and this flyer will go out to a whole bunch of different websites. Zillow is one of them, and when when you create a postlets flyer, your property, when you go there the next day and you look at Zillow, the day that you looked at it before, it said off market and it had a Zillow value and all of these things. And when you create your postlets and you go back to Zillow, now all of a sudden it's for sale by owner because you are the owner. You're a contractual owner of this property, and it is now showing this property for sale by you. And that's a great marketing piece just in and of itself, right there. Create your little flyer on postlets and let it get posted out to. I think it goes out to another like 40 sites. But the fact that it goes on to Zillow, a lot of people are going to see your ad right there. Yep.
Absolutely. Like Paul said, first thing you do is postlets.com. Postlets. And on top of Zillow, and I'm sure Paul's aware of this, I'm just going to point out, it also posts it to a dozen plus other sites. Zillow just happens to be probably the most popular one. It's at least in my opinion the one I use the most. It has the most useful tools and things on it as far as websites go, as far as researching properties. I like it, so it puts it there. What I'm going to say though, even maybe a step just before the postlets is go out and get a couple pictures of the property so you have something to put on postlets. So get an idea of. Because what we like to do if it's a vacant, day one, I like to go out there, get some pictures, walk the property, know exactly what's going on so that when my buyers begin calling because of placing the postlets ad, I can give them a great description of the property. Another thing going to want to do is pick yourself up a lockbox and get a lockbox and put some keys for the property in there, because why you're waiting to sell this property and why you're marketing this property, you don't want to stop looking for your next deal. You don't want to let selling a property hang you up on finding your next deal. You want to, now that you've got this about to be sold, you got to get your next one in the pipeline. Get the lockbox on there so when you begin having buyers, you can send them over there and let them go walk the property if you trust them. So you're not scrambling around looking for the keys. There's a key on site. That's important. That could be a huge time saver. Then Paul said, postlets. Another thing that I would suggest doing is go ahead and go pick up some strong poster board or cardboard and some what do they call it, stakes to put in the ground, and draw yourself up, I would say, a half a dozen to a dozen signs, bandit signs they call them. Put them around the neighborhood, put them on the main streets near the neighborhood, and just write messages on there like, cheap house for sale, great deal, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house for sale. Be creative, short, something quick, because it's a bandit sign on the side of a road. Intersections work really well by stoplights and stop signs. And you're going to want to put a for sale by owner sign in the yard and put your phone number on there or a Google phone number or whatever you do. Me and Paul have another strategy and a product that we use that gives us multiple phone lines. We might have time to get into what that looks like, but you're going to want to put some bandit signs in the area, because one of the biggest mistakes that I've ever made in this business is not advertising with a bandit sign in the area of a property that I had for sale and making less money for not doing so. That's a story for another time, but bandit signs, I'd say, would be step 2. Get your online marketing started with the postlets and get some physical bandit signs put out in the area around the house.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about the bandit signs is the fact that, like John said, they're going to be in the area. So you're actually hitting people that are interested in that specific area because they're there. They're in that area. They're looking in that area. Maybe they're driving around looking for a place. Maybe they're on their way to another fix and flip that they have going on in that area, and they happen to drive past your sign, and they're ready to pick up their next project. So the bandit sign thing is huge. And if your deal allows, it all depends on how the deal's structured and what arrangements you've made with the seller. But if your deal allows you to put a straight up for sale by owner sign actually right in front of the house in the yard is also a great thing. And or maybe even not a for sale by owner sign, because a lot of people maybe sort of don't pay attention to for sale by owner signs. I'll be honest with you, we don't pay much attention to them. We'll take numbers off them, we'll make calls, but they rarely go anywhere because for sale by owner signs generally mean somebody that's doesn't like real estate agents and is trying to sell their house for top dollar, and usually most of the time it's more than top dollar. So opposed to a for sale by owner sign in the yard, you might just get a bigger piece of cardboard or poster board or what do they call it, corrugated board, and make yourself your own bigger bandit sign that you could place right in the yard, saying for sale 3-2, awesome house, whatever this place is, et cetera, and so on, and put those signs in the yard. That will sort of generate even a little bit more interest than the person who is looking at seeing a for sale by owner sign, unless you put your low price on the sign, something like that. So the for sale by owner sign, like I said, it works great, but maybe even replacing it in the yard with a straight up bandit sign that you write up yourself might even get you a little bit more response than the for sale by owner sign.
That is true, but I will say though, the for sale by owner sign, and this is a subject for debate. I do agree with Paul. I'm not disagreeing with Paul at all. Your typical wholesalers will typically, it depends on the level of that wholesaler, but will typically ignore the for sale by owner signs. I don't really, like Paul said, call for sale by owner signs because I'm usually not expecting to find a deal there. Although you may have a cash retail buyer. In one case, Paul and I had a condo under contract. We had not put a sale sign out in the yard, and we sold it and just made a couple of grand to an investor from San Diego. We ended up becoming friendly with this investor from San Diego. She employed my paint company to do only $500 worth of work to this house, literally. And then she asked us to sell the house for us. We put a sign in the yard, and within 24 hours, she had an offer for about 14 grand higher than what we sold it to her for, with doing really nothing to the house. And we were like, oh, if we put that sign in the yard, this buyer that found it was looking. It was a really motivated buyer in the sense that they wanted this house because of their Grammy living next door to it. But we didn't find that person. Had we put that bandit sign out there, we would have actually sold the property for, like I said, $14,000 more than we did. That was a lesson learned. Funny thing is, though, in a way, the universe, the law of attraction worked out. Maybe we weren't meant to sell it for that because this investor actually helped me out in a huge way in the last year, which is a personal thing we don't need to get into. But the bandit sign in the yard, because who knows? Maybe the lady next door's grandson needs to move, wants to buy the house next door to take care of his grandmother. I mean, I know it's a needle in a haystack type of idea, but the mentality is someone's driving around in that area looking to buy a home. How are they going to know your home's for sale if they're not seeing that sign out front? So there's something to be said about, and plus the signs in the area as well for people who are looking for signs in that area. So yes, it's important, and yes, I agree with Paul. You're going to have certain buyers that will ignore the for sale by owner, but you will have certain buyers that will call the for sale by owner. So really, it's up to you and your strategy. In the case of the property that we've got with Mark, I don't know if a for sale by owner sign, well, it might. It's a junker. I mean, this is a this house is a shitstorm to say the least, but but no big deal because it's going to make us some money. But so that's the next step, the bandit signs.
But I will say that I think, you know what, the for sale by owner and the bandit signs is probably going to draw more attention than any other piece of marketing that we do on this shitstorm junker house, because the area where it's in, the buyers that are interested in this property, they are local. They are going to be looking in the neighborhood. They're going to be, in and about. They're not necessarily the guys that are going to be looking on Zillow, or the guys that are going to be looking on Craigslist, or the guys that are going to be looking on some of the other things that we're going to talk about here. So I would not doubt that we get more response simply from a few, about maybe $20 worth of sign and effort, including gas, ink, the whole schmear here, about $20 worth of effort. We'll probably get more response from that, especially on this particular house, than we will with any other thing that we do.
I agree with Paul 100%. Another thing I would say, yesterday, me and Paul we ended up we were out at this property that Mark got under contract to check things out and put a value on it. And while we were out front, we talked to some neighbors, and actually a potential person approached us about the house and was looking at, and this was not an investor buyer, though they would be buying it as investment. Made an offer on the house already, and tentatively said they would pay about 25 for a place like that, 25,000, which is actually right in the ballpark of what we're looking to sell it for. I took his name and number and told him we'd call him if we're interested. And like I said, because we have time, we want to market it a little bit and squeeze every penny out of the deal, which is what you should be doing when you're being able to wholesale from an area of comfort rather than what's the word? Desperation to sell your property. Point being, another strategy to be, just talk to a couple neighbors surrounding the area or surrounding the house you're going to sell, and see if any of the neighbors have interest in it, or if the neighbor knows anyone who's interested in trying to buy something in that area. That's another little strategy. And while you're out putting your bandit signs and checking out the property, take 30 minutes to an hour and talk to some of the neighbors. You might find your buyer that way. Just an idea, throwing it out there. Another thing that which help Paul and I to build a pretty massive buyers list, which we still have buyers on our list that pop out of the woodwork every time we do an email blast from this particular avenue, is Craigslist. And there's a specific strategy that we utilize for Craigslist, which actually was taught to us by another wholesale guru through one of his programs, is to put ads out on Craigslist, and how to put the ads out on Craigslist, and the number of ads, the way you write the ads, and the specific time of the day that you put the ads out on Craigslist. And I'll throw it back to Paul to kind of give you a breakdown of how a Craigslist campaign might look like.
Yeah, what, John? But you're kind of cutting in and out a little bit over there. Not quite sure what's going on.
Yeah, you too, actually. I'm going to reduce my bandwidth and see if that helps out.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, the Craigslist thing here. We could actually do a whole training on just Craigslist, because I'll tell you what, Craigslist has a lot of little glitchy rules and regulations and things that make it difficult for you to actually use Craigslist as a massive marketing tool. So there's definitely some tips and secrets that we could go into, but we're going to kind of skim over that just a little bit here today, and just sort of give you the whole idea of how we kind of do this Craigslist thing. Number one, we don't write boring ads. We don't write your standard simple 3-2, investor special, blah 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 blah, dribble dribble dribble. We write our ads to be very enticing, as if we put ourselves in the shoes of a desperate seller, and we write our ads as such. So hey, I gotta sell my house freaking yesterday. Please call and make me an offer. That's the kind of Craigslist ads you put out. All right. So that's the first thing we do, is we write very creative ads that aren't your standard boring dribble that, as somebody's scrolling through the 1,050 ads that were posted this morning between 8 and 9, that something's going to actually jump out at them, and then they're going to see it. And the second thing we do is we don't just place one ad. We'll place, I forget exactly what the thing is. Do we do just 5, or do we do 15 on an hour?
5 on the hour.
5 on each hour. Okay, so we'll put out 5 ads. So as you're scrolling down Craigslist, there'll be a small little block of these 5 ads that are all with this crazy sort of enticing, whoa, what's this? Jumps out at you. So not only do you have one headline, you've got 5 headlines, and maybe a couple people are going to sneak in there, but they're all going to be fairly close together, and it's an eye-catching thing. So you're going to catch people's eye with the headlines and with the putting a number of ads in succession all in a row. So it jumps out at people, and it gets people to look at your ads, actually see your ads and look at them. And then the third thing that we do is we place them at 3 specific hours of the day, in the morning, at noon, and in the afternoon. And there's specific reasons why we place them at these hours. And we put 5 in each section, so we're putting 15 ads that we're advertising. And like I said, there's a lot of little quirks that Craigslist has that goes along with doing that that's going to cause problems for you. And we could, like I said, we'll probably have to do a whole training on that on another day. But that's kind of the outline. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was going to throw in, we put 5 ads in, as Paul said, at 15 ads total a day, 5 ads in the morning, 5 ads in the afternoon, 5 ads in the late afternoon, evening, 5 o'clock-ish time. And the reasoning behind that is in the morning, 8, 9 o'clock, before people really are going to work, high traffic high traffic time on Craigslist. Then again, when people are taking their breaks at noon from work, maybe they're looking for houses, they're looking to buy something. Investors who are getting into wholesaling or into flipping real estate with full-time jobs, home buyers, most people work 40 hours a week. So around noon, they get their break, and that's when they're checking out Craigslist or the internet, and they're looking for stuff. And then again, at around 4:30 to 6 o'clock in the evening, people are home, getting off from work. It's a time that they understand that they're going to look at advertising, that we're presenting these ads, as Paul said, to look like they're coming from a desperate home seller, to get calls from investors and buying agents and different things, is when they still feel there's enough time in the day, if they check out an ad around 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock at night, that they can go ahead and make that phone call. The reason we do 5 at each time is, as Paul said, because we want a couple of ads to show up in a block, and so that you're more likely, you'll have a higher volume of calls this way. Some of the nuances and quirks, one tip I'll give you about Craigslist, you're going to want to create a separate email account for each day of the week. And you're going to want to do this campaign of 15 ads a day every single day of the week. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to have 15 ads, but they're not going to be the same 15 ads because you will be marked as spam. You've got to have differences in the ads. You've got to, if one of your ads says, "Call me now, I'm desperate to sell," your next ad has to say, "I needed to sell my house like yesterday, please. I need added." You've got to have 15 different titles, and the content can be like, the same message, but written in a different way. So you've got to create 15 different ads. And one of the things we do to make it simple is create all these ads on Word documents, so that every time you go into Craigslist, all you're doing is you have a screen with your Word, you have your Word doc, and you have the Craigslist, and you're copying from your Word doc and pasting into Craigslist. So you're not writing the ads, you're not writing 15 ads a day. You write 15 ads one time, and then you're copying and pasting them onto Craigslist. So those are just a couple tips. And as Paul said, there's a few little things, but you can go ahead and get started doing what we just explained, just a separate email address for each day of the week, 15 ads a day, all different ads, meaning written slightly different, same message. I would suggest getting a Google Plus or a Google phone number rather than your own cell phone number and having that directed to your cell phone. That's just my personal preference. I don't like my actual cell phone number being out there on Craigslist or the internet. And put the ads out about 9, 12, and 5 o'clock every day. And you will, with the first house you have under contract, if you do these simple strategies, postlets, bandit signs, Craigslist, talk to a couple neighbors, you will build a buyer's list faster than you can possibly imagine. That will you can, and some of these people that you'll gain as buyers for this property, oh, we're not interested in that. Okay, but you know what? Create yourself a database. Make sure you get emails and phone numbers and put these people into a database and begin blasting them every deal that you get. And that's kind of the guerrilla tactics, the guerrilla marketing, if you will, to building your buyers list essentially for free. You know, there's some time effort that needs to be put in here. And the bandit signs, as Paul said, with gas and everything, I think you could put out a half a dozen to a dozen bandit signs for the cost of $20 to $30 tops. So there's really no excuse other than you're not motivated enough to make money, I guess. There's really no excuse. This is a free guerrilla marketing campaign that was the foundation of Paul and I building our business, which has come as far as it has to this day.
Let me throw in two key elements about the Craigslist, and these write these down because these are going to save you a monstrous mountain of headache and hassle and dealing with people you don't want to deal with. Number one, in your ads, straight up write it in your ad, no listing agents.
Yes, yes, that's so important.
If you put these ads out and you write them the way we're talking about, you're going to have every listing agent in the city calling you saying, hey, you want to list your property? And we're like, no, we don't want to list our property. So just write it straight up in your ad. Selling agents, okay. Listing agents, stay away. However you want to write it, whatever it is, but put that in your ad, okay? Because you don't want every selling agent, every listing agent in the city calling you wanting to list your property, because we don't want to list our properties. Okay. Secondarily, in your advertisement, when you put your phone number in there, whether it be a Google Plus number or some other sort of hidden number, or whether it's your own personal number, whatever it is, substitute all zeros with a capital O, and or substitute all ones with a lowercase l. And the reason is, this is going to keep all of the spam, automated, Craigslist scraping BS phone calls from coming to you. The robots can't read the letters. They can read the numbers, but the robots can't read the letters, and the phone number makes no sense, and you won't get all this BS calls coming to your phone, and you won't get. Should we tell them about the emails that they're going to receive, which I don't think there's any way to avoid this, but you're going to be receiving some funny emails that are going to say like, oh, which way is the house facing?
Those are BS. Yeah, which way is the house facing?
Yeah, does it get any sunlight? Well, it's not underneath a roof, so you know. Yeah, you'll get some very very odd emails that you're going to be so obvious that you don't even need to bother responding to. So just a heads up on that. You know, there's going to be some emails you're just going to skip, go right to the trash. Don't bother wasting your time. Unless you want to play around with it. We played around with it a little bit. You know,
we did.
Go ahead.
I just want to throw in like what those two things that Paul just brought up there are so critically important to not wasting your time, because listing agents, there's not enough time in the day to take the phone calls from the listing agents, and you don't, quite frankly, don't want to waste your time with listing agents because they never represent buyers. I'm not going to knock listing agents because I actually want to be a listing agent. And that's another avenue of our business. But you don't want to deal with listing agents unless you want to list your property, which we don't. Selling agents who represent buyers, different story. Different story. We actually had done one of our very first deals and created a great relationship with a selling agent who called us from an advertisement. representing a buyer, and he made himself a $7,000 commission doing so, and we made a killing on that first deal, second deal it was actually, but 3 years ago. But yeah, and again, you don't want all the calls, the bullshit calls from the robots and the spiders and the spammers that read. So yes, substitute your zeros with capital O's, substitute your ones with capital L's, you'll be fine. And the majority of the emails you're going to get are going to be bupkis, I don't know, as you could say. Most of the people that, if this person's actually wanting to buy, they're going to call. If they're emailing, they're another wholesaler or somebody looking to lease, because you'll get a lot of lease option type stuff. People saying, you want to lease option the property. Don't even respond to it, because they're looking. That's a particular wholesale strategy, and they're looking for a seller that isn't you. You don't even need to bother with those people unless you're trying to build a lease option buyer list, and those aren't even the right buyers for that list. And like I said, this is I think we gave you amazing content here today for free, and there's certainly a lot more tips and tricks to all of this, which we could be giving to you as well if you go ahead and email us at propertynoodlers@gmail.com and sit down with us and join the team. We could be filling your head with even more valuable information than we could possibly fit in a 30-minute hangout. So with that, I see it's already 9 o'clock, so I'm going to toss it back to Paul to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, okay. I'm just going to throw in, like John said, with the emails that you're going to get. You don't even bother looking at your emails. We already talked about creating 7 new email addresses. Don't worry about it. It's just for use for advertising, for putting your ads out. Don't worry about having to follow up with it. You're going to go in there maybe once every couple of weeks, maybe once a month even. Who knows? You're going to go in there and pretty much delete everything. You can do a quick little scan through, and you'll be able to pick out maybe 5 out of 30 emails that you'll open and look and see if it looks like a real buyer, and the rest you're going to hit delete all and be done with it. So that's it, everybody. We're going to end this today. That's all we got for this part. There's more that you can do, obviously, to market your properties. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit more on Monday, or maybe we'll talk on Monday about going down and picking up checks from the title company. Who knows? But yeah, no. Either way, that's all for today, and I'm going to end it with our Napoleon Hill prayer, which goes, "O universe, I ask not for more riches, but for more wisdom, with which to make better use of the riches given to me at birth," which were also given to you, by the way, consisting of the power to control and direct my own mind to whatever end I might desire. Have a great day, everybody, and a great weekend, and go out there and hopefully find yourself a deal. If not, send an email to propertynoodlers@gmail.com, and we'll get you finding a deal ASAP.